When desperation knocked on her door, Olivia Bennet's hands trembled as she set down her camera, the weight of her uncle's words crushing the air from her lungs. At 22 years old, she had imagined many futures for herself. None of them included this moment, sitting in her cramped studio apartment, while her uncle Robert confessed to a debt that would destroy them both. $1.5 million, Robert repeated, his voice hollow. His face had gone pale, making him look far older than his 53 years. I borrowed from private investors for what I thought was a sure thing. The real estate deal fell through, and now these people want their money, with interest. Olivia, they're not the kind of people who accept excuses or payment plans. Olivia's throat tightened. Surely there's another way. We could sell the house. I could take extra photography jobs. We could go to the police. The police can't help us with this kind of debt. Robert's hands shook. She pulled out a business card from his jacket pocket. But there is one option. A man has made an offer. The card was simple, elegant. Julian Westwood, CEO, Westwood Holdings. The address listed was in the most expensive part of the city, where Olivia had only ever gone to photograph architecture for wealthy clients. What kind of offer? She already knew she wouldn't like the answer. Robert couldn't meet her eyes. He wants to marry you. In exchange, he'll clear my entire debt and provide you with everything you could ever need. A home, security, the freedom to pursue your photography without financial worrying. The room seemed to tilt. Marry me. He doesn't even know me. He saw your work at the Riverside Gallery exhibition last month. He asked about you, learned about our situation, and made this proposal. Robert finally looked at her, tears streaming down his weathered face. I know it's insane. I know I have no right to ask this of you. But Olivia, these people will kill me if I don't pay. And then what happens to you? You have no other family, no safety net. Olivia stood and walked to her window, looking out at the city lights beginning to twinkle in the dusk. Her parents had died 3 years ago, leaving her with nothing but grief and a few precious memories. Robert had taken her in, given her a home when she had nowhere else to go. He wasn't a perfect guardian, but he had tried his best. What kind of man buys a wife? She whispered. A lonely one, perhaps, or a desperate one, like us. Robert's voice cracked. He's agreed to meet you tomorrow. Just meet him, Olivia. That's all I'm asking. If you hate him, if you can't imagine it, we'll find another way somehow. But they both knew there was no other way. The man behind the offered restaurant was unlike anything Olivia had ever experienced. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over tables dressed in pristine white linens. She felt out of place in her simple black dress, clutching her small purse like a lifeline. As the hostess led her to a private corner of booth, Julian Westwood stood as she approached, and Olivia's breath caught despite herself. He wasn't what she had expected. Where she had imagined someone cold and calculating, she found a man whose eyes held a depth of sadness that mirrored her own. He was tall, perhaps 6 feet 2 inches, with dark hair touched with silver at the temples. His suit was perfectly tailored, speaking of wealth, but his smile was tentative, almost shy. Miss Bennet, he said, his voice deep and warm. Thank you for agreeing to meet me. Please, sit. Olivia slid into the booth, her heart racing. Up close, she could see he was probably in his late 30s, maybe 40. Handsome in a distinguished way, with strong features, and those striking amber eyes that seemed to see straight through her defenses. I imagine your uncle explained the situation, Julian began, then paused as a waiter appeared with wine. He waited until they were alone again before continuing. I want to be completely transparent with you, Olivia. May I call you Olivia? She nodded, not trusting her voice. I'm 38 years old. I built my company from nothing, and I've been very fortunate financially, but success in business hasn't translated to success in my personal life. He looked down at his wine glass, swirling the dark liquid. I've been alone for a very long time. The women I meet in my circles are interested in my wealth, not in me. When I saw your photographs at the gallery, I saw something real, something genuine. Your work has soul. So you decided to buy me. The words came out sharper than she intended, but she was too frightened to be polite. Julian's expression didn't harden. Instead, he looked almost relieved. I deserve that. Yes. I'm making an offer that essentially buys your agreement to marry me. But I want you to understand something crucial. I'm not buying a possession. I'm asking for a chance. A chance at what? To know you. To give you a life without financial fear. To perhaps, over time, build something real between us. He leaned forward, his gaze intense. I'm offering you complete control over your own life, Olivia. Your own room, your own space. I will never force you into anything you don't want. If we marry, and you find you can't stand me, I'll still ensure you're taken care of financially. Your uncle's debt will be forgiven regardless. Why would you do all this? There must be hundreds of women who would marry you willingly, because those women would marry Julian Westwood the billionaire. You would be marrying Julian Westwood the man, even if you don't want to. There's honesty in that I haven't found anywhere else. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a folder. This is a contract. I had my lawyers draw it up. It protects you, ensures you'll have financial security no matter what happens between us. Take it home, read it. Have your own lawyer review it if you'd like. Olivia stared at the folder, but didn't take it yet. And if I say no, then I'll still help your uncle. Not the full amount, but enough to keep him safe. You won't owe me anything. Julian's expression was earnest. I know this is bizarre and overwhelming, but I promise you, Olivia, I'm not a monster. I'm just a man who's tired of being alone and hoping that maybe, just maybe, something beautiful could come from an unconventional beginning. The wedding that changed everything 3 days later. Olivia stood in front of a mirror in a bridal boutique, staring at a stranger in an ivory gown. The dress was exquisite, fitted perfectly to her figure with delicate lace sleeves and a flowing skirt that made her feel like she had stepped into a fairy tale. A nightmare fairy tale, perhaps, but beautiful nonetheless. She had read the contract a dozen times. Julian had been true to his word. Everything protected her, gave her freedom, asked for nothing but her presence as his wife. Her uncle's debt had already been cleared. Julian had done that before she even agreed, a gesture of good faith that had left her speechless. You don't have to do this, her reflection seemed to whisper, but she did, not because of the debt anymore, but because when she looked into Julian's eyes at that dinner, she had seen something that called to her lonely heart. A kindred spirit, perhaps, someone who understood what it meant to be alone in a crowded world. The ceremony was small, held in a historic chapel with just a handful of witnesses. As Olivia walked down the aisle, she caught sight of Julian waiting at the altar. He wore a black tuxedo that made him look like he belonged in an old Hollywood film. But it was his expression that made her steps falter. He was looking at her like she was the most precious thing he had ever seen, with a mixture of awe and hope and tender vulnerability that took her breath away. When she reached him, he took her hand gently. "You're breathtaking," he whispered, and she heard the tremor in his voice. He was nervous too, she realized. This powerful man who commanded boardrooms and built empires was nervous about marrying her. The ceremony passed in a blur of traditional words that felt surreal. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, Julian didn't immediately kiss her. Instead, he leaned close and whispered, "Thank you for taking a chance on me." Then he kissed her forehead, soft and chaste, a gesture so sweet and respectful that Olivia felt unexpected tears prick her eyes. The reception was held at Julian's penthouse, a sprawling space with floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the entire city. Olivia moved through the small gathering of Julian's business associates in a daze, her new husband never far from her side. He was attentive without being possessive, introducing her to everyone and making sure she felt comfortable. As the last guest departed, Olivia found herself alone with Julian in the suddenly quiet penthouse. The city lights sparkled below them like a blanket of stars, and she wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly aware of how dramatically her life had changed in just a few days. "Olivia," Julian said softly, and she turned to find him watching her with that same gentle expression. "Let me show you your room. I had it prepared specially for you." He led her down a hallway to a door at the end. When he opened it, Olivia gasped. The room was perfect. Large windows let in moonlight, illuminating a beautiful space decorated in soft creams and golds. But what made her eyes well with tears was the corner he had set up as a photography studio, complete with professional lighting equipment, backdrops, and a desk for editing. "I thought you might want to continue your work," Julian said quietly. "This is your space, Olivia, entirely yours. My room is on the other side of the penthouse. You have complete privacy." "Julian," she whispered, overwhelmed by his thoughtfulness. "This is too much. It's not enough," he replied. "I want you to be happy here. I want this to feel like home, not a prison." He moved toward the door, then paused. "Good night, Olivia. If you need anything at all, I'm just down the hall." As the door closed behind him, Olivia sank onto the plush bed, her wedding dress pooling around her. She had married a stranger today. She had become Mrs. Julian Westwood, without knowing what tomorrow would bring. But as she looked around the room he had created for her, at the care and thought he had put into making her comfortable, she felt something unexpected bloom in her chest. Hope. Maybe this didn't have to be the end of her story. Maybe it could be a strange new beginning. Morning light, and Cafe. Olivia woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows and spent a confused moment wondering where she was before reality crashed back. She was married. She lived in a penthouse now. Her life had completely transformed overnight. The clock on the knitstand read 8:30. She threw on the silk robe that had been left for her and ventured out of her room, drawn by the smell of fresh coffee. Following the scent led her to a stunning kitchen with marble countertops and state-of-the-art appliances. Julian stood at the stove, wearing jeans and a casual sweater that made him look younger and more approachable than in his wedding tuxedo. He was flipping pancakes, and there was something so domestic about the scene that Olivia stopped in the doorway, just watching him. He turned and spotted her, his face breaking into a warm smile. "Good morning. I hope I didn't wake you. I tried to be quiet, but I'm not very good at it. You cook?" The question came out before she could stop it. Julian laughed, a rich sound that filled the kitchen. "I do. I learned when I was young and lived alone. Old habits die hard. Are you hungry?" I made way too much food, as usual. They sat at the breakfast bar together, and Olivia found herself relaxing as Julian chatted easily about nothing important. He asked about her photography, really listened when she talked about her favorite subjects to shoot, and shared funny stories about mishaps with various hotel properties he owned. "I have to go into the office for a few hours," Julian said as they finished eating, "but I wanted to ask if you'd like to have dinner together tonight. No pressure if you'd prefer to eat alone." Olivia surprised herself by nodding. "I'd like that." His smile could have lit up the entire city. Discovering hidden depths over the following days, a routine emerged. Julian left for work each morning, always making sure there was fresh coffee and something for Olivia to eat. She spent her days exploring the penthouse, setting up her photography equipment, and venturing out to capture the city from new angles. Evenings became their special time. They would cook together, or Julian would order from restaurants Olivia had never dreamed of trying, and they would talk for hours. Julian was nothing like she had expected. He was funny, self-deprecating, and incredibly well-read. He asked her opinions on everything and actually seemed to care about her answers. One evening, about 2 weeks into their marriage, Olivia found Julian standing by the windows, staring out at the city with an expression of such profound sadness that it made her chest ache. "Julian," she said softly, approaching him, "are you okay?" He turned, and she saw the grief in his eyes before he could hide it. "I'm sorry. Today would have been my younger sister's birthday. She died 10 years ago in a car accident. Sometimes the anniversaries hit harder than others." Without thinking, Olivia took his hand. "Tell me about her." They sat on the couch, and Julian talked 4 hours about Hannah, his sister who had been bright and funny and full of life. He told Olivia about growing up with limited means, how he had worked multiple jobs to help support his family, how Hannah's death had motivated him to build his business empire so he could take care of his aging parents. They passed away 5 years ago, within months of each other, Julian said quietly. After that, I threw myself into work. It was easier than facing how alone I was. Olivia understood that feeling all too well. When my parents died, I felt like I was drowning. Every day was just about surviving, getting through the next hour. Uncle Robert tried to help, but grief is such a solitary thing. Julian's fingers tightened around hers. It doesn't have to be. Not anymore. We've both been alone for too long, Olivia. Maybe we can figure out how not to be together. Something shifted between them that night. The walls they had both carefully maintained began to crack, letting light seep through. When walls come down a month into their marriage, Olivia's uncle called to invite them to dinner. Robert wanted to thank Julian properly for his generosity. Olivia agreed, though she felt nervous about the meeting. The dinner started well enough, but as the evening progressed and Robert had a bit too much wine, he became emotional. "You saved our lives," he said to Julian, his eyes welling up. "I'll never be able to repay you for what you've done. There's no debt between us," Julian said kindly. "Taking care of Olivia is all the thanks I need." But Robert kept going, his guilt pouring out. "I should never have put her in this position. She deserved to marry for love, not because her foolish uncle made terrible choices." The drive home was silent. Olivia stared out the window, her uncle's words echoing in her mind. Marry for love. She had given up that dream when she agreed to Julian's proposal. Back at the penthouse, she headed straight for her room. But Julian caught her hand gently. "Talk to me," he said. "Please, I can see something is bothering you. Do you regret this?" The question burst out of her. "This strange arrangement we have. Do you wish you had found someone who actually wanted to marry you?" Julian's expression was intense as he stepped closer. "Olivia, I need you to understand something. Every day with you has been a gift. Getting to know you, hearing you laugh, watching you get excited about a good photograph, sharing meals and conversations and quiet evenings. I don't regret a single moment. But I didn't choose you," she whispered. "I married you out of desperation. And yet, here we are. You didn't have to be kind to me. You didn't have to share your stories or ask about my day or hold my hand when I talked about my sister. You chose to do those things, Olivia. Maybe you didn't choose the marriage, but you've chosen to make it real. That means everything to me." Tears spilled down Olivia's cheeks. "I'm so confused. I don't know what I'm feeling anymore. This was supposed to be just an arrangement, but you're not just a stranger anymore. You're my friend, and I look forward to coming home because I know you'll be here. And I don't know what to do with these feelings." Julian reached up and gently wiped away her tears. "You don't have to do anything with them. Just let them exist. Let us figure this out together, one day at a time. What if I mess this up? What if I can't be what you need?" "Olivia," he said softly, cupping her face in his hands. "You already are, just by being exactly who you are." She didn't know who moved first, but suddenly they were kissing, tentative at first, then deeper as weeks of tension and longing found release. Julian's arms wrapped around her, pulling her close, and Olivia felt like she was finally coming home. When they pulled apart, both breathless, Julian rested his forehead against hers. "I'm falling in love with you," he whispered. "I probably have been since that first dinner. You don't have to say anything back. I just needed you to know." Olivia's heart felt like it might burst. "I think I'm falling for you too. It terrifies me." "Me too," he admitted with a soft laugh. "But maybe we can be terrified together." That night, Olivia didn't sleep in her room. She fell asleep in Julian's arms on the couch, the city lights twinkling below them. To lonely souls who had found each other in the most unexpected way. Over the next few weeks, their relationship deepened. Julian was patient and gentle, never pushing for more than Olivia was ready to give. They went on real dates, exploring the city together, Julian showing her his favorite hidden spots, and Olivia capturing moments through her camera lens. He attended her first solo photography exhibition, standing in the gallery with such obvious pride that it made her emotional. He bought 3 of her pieces, not because he was her husband, but because he genuinely loved her work. "You have real talent," he told her that night over celebratory champagne. "The world needs to see what you create." Olivia felt her heart swell. Julian believed in her in a way no one ever had. He supported her dreams without trying to control them, celebrated her successes without jealousy, and stood beside her as an equal partner. The physical intimacy between them grew naturally. Soft kisses became deeper. Gentle touches became more passionate. 2 months into their marriage, Olivia stood in Julian's bedroom doorway one evening, her heart pounding. "I'm ready," she said simply. Julian looked up from his book. Understanding immediately what she meant, he stood and crossed to her, taking her hands. "Are you sure? There's no rush, Olivia. We have all the time in the world." "I'm sure. I want this. I want you." What followed was tender and beautiful. Julian treating her like she was precious and fragile, making sure every moment was about pleasure and connection. Afterward, lying in his arms, Olivia felt a completeness she never experienced. The letter that changed everything. 3 months into their marriage, Olivia was floating on a cloud of happiness. What had started as an arrangement had transformed into genuine love. She and Julian were partners in every sense, building a life together that felt real and meaningful. Then she found the letter. She hadn't been snooping. She was simply looking for a pen in Julian's home office when she knocked over a file folder. Papers scattered across the desk, and one particular document caught her eye. It was a letter from Julian to his lawyer, dated 2 weeks before their wedding. Her hands trembled as she read it. The letter outlined Julian's plan in detail. He had researched her uncle's financial troubles extensively. The men Robert owed money to weren't dangerous criminals at all. They were Julian's own business associates, people he had deliberately positioned to pressure Robert. Julian had created the entire crisis, manipulated the situation to make marriage seem like the only option. But it was the final paragraph that made Olivia's blood run cold. "I've been alone too long and I want someone genuine. Someone who will see me for who I am rather than what I have. This arrangement will give me that chance. Once she's financially dependent and emotionally invested, she have no reason to leave. I'll finally have the family I've always wanted." The paper slipped from Olivia's fingers. Everything had been a lie. The debt, the danger, the noble sacrifice. Julian had orchestrated it all, manipulating her and her uncle like pieces on a chessboard. She heard the front door open. Julian was home. "Olivia," he called out. "I brought dinner from that Thai place you love." She walked out of the office on numb legs, the letter clutched in her hand. Julian's smile faded when he saw her expression. "What's wrong? Who are you?" Her voice was eerily calm. "The man I thought I married, or the man who wrote this?" She held up the letter. Julian's face went white. "Olivia, let me explain." "Explain what?" "That you manufactured an entire crisis to trap me. That my uncle was never in real danger. That everything about our relationship has been built on lies." "No," Julian said desperately, setting down the food and moving toward her. "Yes, I created the situation, but everything that's happened between us has been real. My feelings for you are real. How can I believe anything you say?" Tears streamed down her face. "You manipulated me, Julian. You took away my choice, my agency. You played God with my life and my uncle's life just because you were lonely." "I know." His voice broke. "I know what I did was wrong. At the time, I justified it to myself. I thought if I could just get you to see who I really was, you'd fall for me naturally. And you did, Olivia. What we have is real. It's built on a foundation of lies." She threw the letter at him. "Every moment we've shared, every kiss, every time I told you I loved you, I thought I was making a choice. But I never had one, did I? You stacked the deck from the beginning." Julian's face crumpled. "I love you. That's real. Everything I feel for you is real. Is it? Or did you just successfully manipulate yourself into caring about your captive?" The word hung between them like a knife. Captive. That's what she was. What she had always been. Even as she fooled herself into thinking she was falling in love freely, I'm leaving, Olivia said, her voice hollow. Please. Julian's eyes were wild with panic. Please, just let me make this right. I'll do anything. You can't make this right. You can't undo what you've done. She walked past him toward her old room, the one she hadn't slept in 4 weeks. I need time to think. Alone, the truth in the darkness. Olivia spent 3 days locked in her room, ignoring Julian's pleas through the door. He left food that she barely touched. He sent text messages that she deleted unread. Her world had shattered, and she didn't know how to piece it back together. On the 4th day, her uncle called. Olivia, sweetheart, Julian called me. He told me everything. I'm so sorry. I should have questioned the situation more, should have protected you better. It's not your fault, Uncle Robert. We were both manipulated. Maybe, Robert said carefully. But I want you to know something. The debt was real, Olivia. I did borrow money, and I was in trouble. Julian's associates were the ones I owed, yes, and maybe he orchestrated the pressure, but without his intervention, I would have lost everything anyway. Probably worse, the amount was real, and I had no way to pay it. This information didn't make her feel better. If anything, it made things more complicated. That doesn't excuse what he did. No, it doesn't. But I've also watched you these past 3 months. I've seen you happier than you've been since your parents died. He's been good to you, hasn't he? That doesn't matter if it was all manipulation, doesn't it? Look, I'm not defending what Julian did. It was wrong, controlling, arrogant. But Olivia, he gave you something no one else could have. Security, support for your art, partnership, and from what I've seen, genuine love. The question isn't whether his initial actions were wrong. They were. The question is whether what you've built together since then is real. After Robert hung up, Olivia sat in the darkening room, thinking about his words. She thought about Julian making her pancakes every morning, teaching her to cook his grandmother's recipes, holding her when she cried about missing her parents, standing in her gallery exhibition with tears in his eyes because he was so proud of her. She thought about how he had never once treated her as lesser, had supported her dreams without trying to control them, had given her space and freedom even as he loved her desperately. Had he manipulated the beginning of their relationship? Yes. Was that unforgivable? She didn't know. What she did know was that she missed him, missed his laugh, his warmth, the way he looked at her like she was his entire world. But could she trust him again? Rebuilding from the ashes. On the 5th day, Olivia emerged from her room. She found Julian in the living room, looking like he hadn't slept since their confrontation. His eyes were bloodshot, his face haggard. He stood immediately when he saw her. Olivia, we need to talk, she said. Sitting on the couch. Really talk. No more lies. No more manipulation. Complete honesty. Anything, Julian said, sitting across from her, maintaining distance. Ask me anything. Why me? Out of all the women in the world. Why did you fixate on me? Julian took a shaky breath. Your photographs. I saw them at the gallery, and they spoke to me in a way nothing had in years. They showed loneliness, but also hope. Beauty in ordinary moments. I researched you, learned you had lost your parents like I had. When I discovered your uncle's situation, I saw an opportunity. It was wrong, but I took it. Did you ever actually care about me? Or was I just a project? I fell for you the moment we had dinner. Everything after that was real. Olivia, the way you challenged me, made me laugh, saw past my money to who I actually am. I'm in love with you, not with the idea of you, but with the real, complicated, beautiful person you are. Olivia studied his face, looking for deception and finding only raw honesty and pain. You took away my choice, she said quietly. You made me feel like I had no option but to marry you. Do you understand how violating that is? Yes. Tears ran down Julian's face. I understand it now in a way I didn't then. I was so focused on not being alone anymore that I didn't consider what I was taking from you. Your autonomy, your freedom to choose your own path. I'm so sorry, Olivia. If I could go back and do it differently, I would. What would you do differently? Julian thought about it. I would have cleared your uncle's debt anonymously. Then I would have tried to meet you normally, perhaps through the gallery. I would have asked you on a date like a normal person and hoped you'd give me a chance. I would have let you choose me freely. Or not choose me at all. Why didn't you do that in the first place? Because I was terrified you'd never choose someone like me. I'm too old for you, too damaged, too obsessed with work. I thought the only way someone as vibrant and talented as you would be with someone like me was if there was no other option. His words were painfully honest. Olivia could see the deep insecurity beneath his powerful exterior, the loneliness that had driven him to such desperate measures. That's not your choice to make, she said firmly. You don't get to decide what I want or who I choose. You took that power from me. I know, and I'll regret it for the rest of my life. They sat in silence for a long moment. Finally, Olivia spoke. I love you, Julian. God help me. I actually love you. But I don't know if I can trust you again. Trust is the foundation of everything, and you shattered it. Tell me how to fix it, Julian begged. I'll do anything. I don't know if you can. That's the problem. She stood up, wrapping her arms around herself. I need more time. I'm going to stay at a hotel for a while. Do some thinking. The prenup, Julian said quickly. The one I had you sign. I'm voiding it. You'll have full access to your own accounts with enough money that you'll never need to depend on anyone. Whether you come back or not, you'll be taken care of. No strings attached. This surprised her. Why would you do that? Because I need you to know that you have a real choice now. You can leave and be completely fine financially. You don't need me, Olivia. I want you to stay only if you choose to. Not because you have no other option. Olivia felt something crack in her chest. This was what she had needed. Real freedom. Real choice. Thank you, she whispered. A choice made freely. Olivia spent 2 weeks at a boutique hotel, thinking and processing and trying to understand her own heart. The bank statements Julian had sent showed he had been true to his word. She had complete financial independence now. She could walk away and never look back. She threw herself into her photography, capturing the city in all its moods. She had coffee with her uncle, long talks with old friends from her art classes. She went to therapy and worked through her feelings about choice and manipulation and love. And she missed Julian terribly. She missed his terrible jokes and his thoughtful gestures, the way he remembered how she liked her coffee and which paintings were her favorites, how he supported her dreams without trying to control them. The conversations that lasted until 3 in the morning about everything and nothing. The man she had fallen in love with was real, even if their beginning had been manufactured. The question was whether she could forgive the manipulation in light of everything that had come after. On the 16th day, Olivia returned to the penthouse. Julian wasn't home. The place felt empty without him, and she realized how much it had become home over the past months. She found him at his office downtown. His assistant tried to stop her, but Olivia walked right past, pushing open the door to his private office. Julian looked up from his desk, shock crossing his face. Olivia, I need to know something, she said, closing the door behind her. If I walk away right now, what happens? You take your money and live your life. I'll admire you from afar and try to be happy knowing you're okay. And if I stay? Julian stood slowly, hope and fear warring in his expression. Then we start over. We date properly. I caught you the way I should have from the beginning. No pressure, no manipulation. Just a people seeing if they can build something real together. What if I want to skip the dating phase? Olivia asked, moving closer to him. What if I already know what I want? What do you want? His voice was barely a whisper. You, not because I have to, not because I have no other choice, but because I choose you. I choose us. She reached up and cupped his face. You did something unforgivable, Julian. You manipulated me and took away my choice. That was wrong, and I'll probably never forget it. His face fell, but she continued. But you also showed me every day after that who you really are. A man who makes me laugh, who supports my dreams, who holds me when I cry and celebrates my successes like they're his own. You gave me freedom when you didn't have to. You gave me the power to walk away. That means something. Olivia, he breathed. I'm choosing you, Julian. Not because I'm trapped, but because I want to. Because I love you. And I believe you love me. But if you ever manipulate me again, if you ever take away my choices or try to control me, I'm gone. Do you understand? Yes, he said fervently, pulling her into his arms. I understand. I swear to you, Olivia, I will spend every single day for the rest of my life proving that I'm worthy of this second chance. I will never lie to you again, never manipulate you, never take away your power to choose. You have my word. And this time I mean it with everything I am. She wrapped her arms around his neck, breathing in his familiar scent. I'm holding you to that promise. Please do, he whispered against her hair. Hold me accountable. Challenge me. Never let me get away with anything less than complete honesty. They stood there for a long moment, holding each other as if they might disappear as they let go. Finally, Olivia pulled back enough to look into his eyes. Take me home, Julian. Our home. His smile was radiant, transforming his entire face. Always. 6 months later, Olivia stood in the gallery, surrounded by her photographs displayed on pristine white walls. The exhibition was called Choosing Love, and each image told a story of finding beauty in unexpected places, of second chances and new beginnings. Julian stood beside her, his hand warm in hers. As collectors and critics moved through the space, he had insisted on staying in the background, letting this be her moment, but she had refused. They were partners now, in every sense of the word. That one is my favorite, Julian said, gesturing to a photograph of two hands intertwined, backlit by sunset. When did you take it? The day I came back to you, Olivia admitted. I set the timer and captured us. I wanted to remember that moment, when I chose you freely. Julian raised her hand to his lips and kissed it gently. Best decision you ever made. Second best, she corrected with a smile. The best decision was forgiving you and giving us a real chance. Their relationship had transformed over the past 6 months. They had gone to couples therapy, worked through trust issues, established healthy boundaries. Julian had been true to his word, never once trying to control or manipulate her. He supported her art career without interfering, celebrated her independence, and loved her fiercely while respecting her autonomy. They had also learned to laugh together, to be silly and playful. Just last week, Julian had surprised her with a spontaneous trip to the beach, where they had built sandcastles and eaten ice cream like teenagers. The serious, lonely man she had first met had transformed into someone who smiled easily and loved deeply. I have something for you, Julian said, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket. Olivia's heart skipped. Julian, we're already married, I know, but you never got to choose this. He opened the box to reveal a stunning ring, different from her wedding band. This is a promise ring, a promise that I will spend every day choosing you back, respecting you, loving you the way you deserve. You don't have to wear it if you don't want to. It's your choice. Tears filled Olivia's eyes as she looked at the ring, then at the man who had started as her captor and become her partner. Put it on. Julian slid the ring onto her finger, his own eyes misty. I love you, Olivia. Thank you for seeing past my mistakes to the man I'm trying to be. I love you too, she whispered. Thank you for giving me the freedom to choose you. As they stood together in the gallery, surrounded by images of love and second chances, Olivia realized that their story had transformed from a tale of manipulation into something beautiful. They had taken a broken beginning and rebuilt it into something strong and true. She had chosen Julian freely, with her eyes wide open, knowing his flaws and loving him anyway. And he had chosen to be worthy of that choice, to become the man she deserved. In the end, that's what love was. Not a perfect beginning, but to people choosing each other every single day, building something beautiful from whatever materials they had. And their love story, unconventional as it was, had become something neither of them would change.